After 9/11, the president had a 94% approval rating because on 9/12, everybody was an American. On 9/12, we were all Americans. We weren't Republican, Democrat, we were all Americans. And I just pray to God that something like that doesn't have to happen again before we're all Americans again. And we need to require that from our leaders. We need to require them to behave and start acting like adults. And if we do that as voters, you know what? They'll start behaving that way when they know that we require that. And this room is full of independents. They need every one of you. They need every one of your votes to win this election. And if you let them know that that's what you expect, then they'll start showing it. Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us live for our post-debate town hall here on Merit TV. Now, this town hall is brought to you in part by the film Reagan, playing in theaters now. Go see it today. You can check your local listings. By the way, I've seen it, and it is really compelling. Tonight's audience is full of local independent voters, the majority of whom are from Tarrant County, Texas, which has been reported as one of the 15 battleground counties that could play a key role in this year's presidential election. We're going to find out which candidate voters feel won tonight's debate, and was there anything Donald Trump or Kamala Harris said that changed voters' minds. Plus, top behavior and body language experts, my dear friends Greg Hartley and Scott Rouse from the behavior panel are here to share what they saw after analyzing both candidates. You don't want to talk in front of these guys because they see what you don't say and hear what you don't say. But we'll talk to them here in just a little bit. So let's get started. First off, I'm interested in whether or not you thought tonight's debate was facilitated in a fair fashion or whether you thought it was facilitated in a biased fashion. If you thought the debate tonight was moderated fairly, raise your hand. Raise it real high so the camera can get it. Okay, that looks like maybe about half of you. If you think it was not fair, raise your hand. Okay, so more than half of you did think it was moderated fairly. Some of you did not think so. Who wants to tell me why you think it was not moderated fairly? Somebody raise your hand that wants to tell me why. Stand up if you will in the back in the suit, okay. Need a mic over here quickly. Where are my guys? You guys stay in the aisles here. I don't care if you're on camera or not. Stay close. Okay, say your first name and tell me why you think it was not moderated fairly.
First name is Vance. I don't feel it was moderated. I felt she kind of cut him off. Felt like multiple times there was just people cutting people off, specifically her.
That Kamala Harris was...
Yeah, they would just be like cut it off and didn't give him enough time to respond or her enough time to respond. I just felt there was a lot of cutoff.
Okay. Well, now I don't want to cut you off, so I think it would be unfair. All right, good. Who else has an opinion about this? Anybody else that thinks it was not fair tonight? Okay, stand up, and we'll bring a mic right to you. Go. Say your first name.
My name is Michael. I feel like Donald Trump was just cutting off Kamala and really just wouldn't even look at her or give her any respect at all to talk. And I feel like if that was me to be up there, I would want that same respect. And I just feel like he didn't give it to her.
All right, and how about the moderators? Do you think they were being even-handed with both candidates?
I feel like they were being even, but at the same time, I feel like Trump was cutting them off a lot and just going over time, just trying to get his point out. And yeah, I just feel like he wasn't being very respectful at all.
Okay, how many of you agree with what was your name?
Michael.
Michael. How many of you agree with what Michael is saying, that he wasn't being respectful? Okay. How many of you think that matters, whether he was being respectful or not? Okay.
Very much.
Maybe a third of you. Okay. All right. Who else has a comment on the fairness of what went on tonight? Stand up. Microphone. Say your first name.
My name is Daniel. I actually think that it wasn't fair for the exact opposite reason. I think that Trump was actually thinking versus Kamala kept speaking over him in the alternate light. So.
Okay. And how about the moderators? Do you think they were being fair?
I don't, just because I feel like Trump kept getting asked harder questions versus Kamala kind of got thrown softballs, easier to answer.
Okay. How many of you agree with that aspect? Oh, wow. That's almost everybody. Well, not everybody, but 75% of you. Okay. All right, good. Now, let me ask you this. If there was something that was talked about tonight that you think was really important to you, there were a lot of topics talked about tonight. Was there something that jumped out at you that you've been waiting to hear discussed, you've been waiting to hear talked about, that really resonated with you? What was it? Stand up, we'll bring you a microphone. Say your first name.
Hi guys, my name is Koa. And I think that one of the main things that really stood out to me that was talked about tonight was abortion and women's health care. And honestly, the thing that jumped out to me the most was when former President Donald Trump mentioned that women will carry their babies all the way to term and then choose to execute their babies. That really stood out to me. It felt a little bit uneducated and a little bit biased. But I think that honestly, on this topic specifically, I would side with Kamala Harris because she is a woman and she knows what it's like to have that health care restricted. And it's really scary for me. If I'm in a position where I need that emergency health care, I have to go all the way to New Mexico to go get that with the risk of being arrested, you know?
Okay. How many of you think abortion was a really big issue tonight and should be? Okay, raise your hand. Okay. Did you tend to side with Kamala Harris, or if you tended to side with Kamala Harris, raise your hand. Okay, if you tended to decide with former President Trump, raise your hand. Okay, so you kind of evenly split on that, but you agree it was an important issue. Okay. Now, if there was another issue that jumped out at you, what was it? Yes, ma'am. Stand up right there, second row.
Hi, my name is Kemi. An issue that was really important to me that was brought up was Donald Trump allegedly dividing the country by race. I think that was not handled very well because, you know, something that he did say that was a big issue was him saying, oh, Obama wasn't born here, oh, Kamala isn't black. But now he's saying, well, I don't care what she is. So it feels very ingenuine, especially when race has been a big issue because of Donald Trump and his opinion and his policies on migration and immigration, and a lot of minorities have been affected negatively because of how he feels. So for him to just dismiss the topic like it's not important, like it's not something that he has repeatedly fed into, he could have done way better.
Okay. You're talking about several different things there, one being the border and immigration, right? Was that a big issue tonight? Raise your hand if the border is a big issue. Okay. Who won the debate about the border tonight? If you think that Kamala Harris had the strongest position on the border tonight, raise your hand. 4 of you. Well, if you think President Trump had the strongest position on the border, raise your hand. Okay, now some of you didn't raise your hand. So you're not sure? Those that didn't raise your hand? Or did I not ask the question right? Stand up. Say. Look, let's get you a mic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Brianna. I think that nobody won the debate on the border tonight because when Trump was asked about the border, he kept going around that question and addressing other things. And with Kamala, she asked, she brought up a policy, about bringing more Border Patrol agents to the border and talking about how Donald Trump killed the bill. And she asked him to address that and he wouldn't address it. So I feel like both of them were avoiding giving a specific, a direct, clear answer on the border. And it just kind of, it wasn't really... That's why I said I don't think anybody won Yeah. So,
Well, you listened very carefully.
yeah, I did.
Yeah, you listened very carefully
Yes.
about that. Thank you for that comment. Now, do you think it's important that we have a secure border? Does everybody agree with that? Do you think we have a secure border? Okay, does everybody agree that we don't have a secure border? Because that seemed like a kind of a uniform no. If you agree we don't have a secure border right now, raise your hand. Okay, everybody, pretty much, not everybody, but almost everybody thinks we need more security on the border. Okay? Did the candidates' responses as a whole, I'm not talking about any one in particular, did their responses taken as a whole shape, solidify, or change your perception of their leadership abilities? In watching how they behaved, how they responded, the strength of their answers, the coherence of their answers, the way they were able to stand their ground, express themselves, move back and forth, who, if either one, would you want as your president? Did either one of them move your position like, I'm going to have somebody out there fighting for me or representing us. I think I'd rather have him or her. Did either one of them move your position? If either one of them moved your position, raise your hand. Okay, who moved your position?
Hi, my name is Christina, and I didn't think it would, but Vice President Harris moved my position. She came across as presidential, the way that she held herself, the way she spoke.
All right, who agrees that Vice President Harris moved your position towards her based on the way she handled herself tonight? Raise your hand really high. Okay, so that's like 10, 12 of you. All right, how many of you say that Donald Trump, the way he conducted himself, moved your position and said, if I'm gonna have somebody out front as a leader, I would like it to be him that moved my position in that direction? Raise your hand high. Okay, kind of about the same number. All right, joining us now are top behavior and body language experts, Greg Hartley and Scott Rouse. Now, this is Greg, this is Scott, and we have a show on Merit TV called Behavior Panel. You may have seen them on the internet before. If not, you may have seen them on Merit TV. If you haven't, you should, because they really deconstruct some of the most compelling interviews and events from all parts of culture. Interrogations by the police, political, pop, anything. And if you want to know kind of whether somebody's shooting you straight or not, or whatever, they really help you do that. And it's very interesting. And you can use it in your own life. Now, you guys watched the debate very closely.
Oh, yeah.
Were there things that jumped out at you guys? And if so, what?
Yeah, for sure. I would say right off the bat, you could tell that Kamala Harris came in first very stressed. You could see her body language was rigid and wooden, and she was moving odd, and her blink rate was about 60 beats per second. It's a big deal. We usually blink about 12 times, 60 per minute. We usually blink about 12 times per minute. Watch her eyes. That's stress. That doesn't mean anything except for she was stressed and prepared for a fight.
Okay, so that's a fight or flight reaction. She's got a lot of adrenaline pumping.
Yep.
But normally, it's 12 to 15 blinks per minute, right?
Right.
And she was 60?
60 is about what I measured, yeah.
So that's about 500%.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a lot of arousal.
Yeah, so what's happening in that person's body is this adrenal cortex is kicking in and they're going into kind of panic mode, and their body wants to either get out of the space or fight back. And so all these autonomic things are happening they have no control over.
Yeah, well, she was in a presidential debate.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
I mean, it is
Not
a big
taking
deal.
away from that, and
So,
it's Trump. She's
yeah.
sitting 10 feet away.
So right from the start, you noticed that she was, in your opinion, trying to pick a fight.
Well, yeah, there's a great video we'll look at here just a second.
Well, let's do it right
Yeah.
now. There's no sense waiting.
Yeah, so
All right, Scott, come over here.
what's great about this video is we get to see, did anybody notice that Kamala Harris did not laugh, that thing that everybody calls a cackle? She laughed one time. Do you remember that? When did she laugh? Well, what I saw is she laughed when she baited him into a fight.
Okay, now the reason this is important is, look, these guys have both been in debate prep. right? I mean, they've been like woodshedded. So they've been spending sometimes 6-8 hours a day preparing for this debate. And one of the strategies, and I've done a lot of witness prep in my career, where I've prepared witnesses for billion-dollar trials and prepared CEOs of large corporations to face the media in high-stress situations. And so you go in with strategies. And one of her strategies is she knows that former President Trump can be volatile, right? Explosive. You know, he can call people names and he can say, and so clearly, if I was preparing her, which I was not, I've been trying to interview her. I've got in so many requests, it looks like confetti on New Year's Eve. And she hasn't been talking to anybody, but I think she will. But if I was preparing her to debate Trump, one of the things I would be doing is saying, you got to get him upset. You got to get him mad. You got to bait him so he loses it and shows not his finest side.
And precisely what I would do as well, Doc. First of all, she's this big, he's this big. It makes him look like a bully. So she's smart to draw him into that, make him lose it. And all that adrenaline we're talking about takes away your thinking brain and makes you respond. That's what she's after. We said that her face, if you notice her face here, if I go over and mark, you can see in here, she's actually showing that big smile. Big smile. Her hands come up, her fingers are extended and joined. She's confident, she's gotten him into it. That's genuine. That is not her nervous, throw her head back, protect her throat laugh. We can see her eyes are engaged. You see her moving her hands. She intended exactly what she's getting, and she's not answering the question she was asked. She's attacking him about his stuff.
Yeah, now look at this. Look at this expression right here.
That's contempt all day. That upper side, one-sided face rise is contempt in her part. Her chin is thrust forward instead of protecting her neck. When she laughs out of nervousness, she does ha, and it makes her look different. You can see it. She baited him in, and she's ready for it.
Okay, so there was nothing accidental.
Nothing accidental.
Okay. Now, Scott, you analyzed former President Trump's body language and behavior and say you noticed something very interesting about his eyes from the beginning of the debate. What did you notice?
A lot of people will count blink rate quite often. We'll talk about how many times a person blinks. But in this situation, what we're looking at from an eye perspective is called the intake eye. For example, if you're shooting a gun and you put your eye on the target, that eye opens up and the other eye will kind of squint a little bit. However, when you're taking in information that you're thinking about that may be aggressive information toward you, then you've got inner dialogue going on and you're fighting back and forth as you think about that. What am I going to do? What am I going to say?
All right, and what do we see in here?
And right here, we see that eye right there start squinting. And that's his right eye. That's his intake eye. And the more he thinks, as he's going aggressively toward Kamala, the more that eye squints because he's thinking about the things that she said up to that point so far. This right here, we're seeing a little bit, this is not a micro expression. A micro expression is a very small, fast expression. But this is a little bit of anger right in here. That's why we see those bottom teeth right there. So we're seeing confidence, but at the same time as he's extremely stressed, because this was at the beginning of the debate. So which is normal, you're going to be stressed, but we're seeing a whole lot of stress build up on him, and that's why that eye starts closing as he's taking in that information and thinking about it.
All right, and Greg, you noticed something else about Vice President Harris tonight, that she didn't answer the question about flip-flopping.
Yeah, so
because they went over 5 or 6 examples.
Agreed. And the question you have to ask yourself is, this is a big election, so what you're looking for is truth. You're looking for what the person believes. What we saw, however, is watch her. First of all, her elbows are at her side. When she's given the chance to answer the flip-flopping question, she brings up a topic she says she didn't flip-flop on. She doesn't address flip-flopping. She covers that up. And we see that. Watch her elbows. I told you. See that hand on the right is getting smaller? When people believe in what they're saying, they hold their hands and they extend their fingers and their thumbs and their elbows away from their side. When they do this, you should be suspicious. That's creating an exoskeleton for themselves. So what we didn't get, in my opinion, is clarity. Clarity is a different thing than honesty even. If a person's going to guard what they're saying, it's hard to know what's truth.
Okay, so you're saying when she comes in here...
Yes. Well, and Donald Trump does it occasionally. You'll see when he does something stupid, he does this too. So you see it, you see her hands are extended, but when she gets pressed, she rolls her fingers and she doesn't answer the question.
Okay, and she never did answer that.
She never did answer the question.
Okay. And Scott, you say you also noticed something else with former President Trump that you call his baseline.
Right. So in his baseline, we usually see the illustrators, where we see the little squeeze box thing going back and forth, and we get that hand coming up like this, and he'll start doing this. This is where he starts breaking out into the classic Trump illustrators. Illustrators are the way your brain emphasizes specific words and phrases, like I did just then, specific words and phrases. And that's what we're seeing when we see his arms move on the words. And this shows he's got confidence with what he's saying and believes it because they happen when the words hit. Quite often when someone doesn't believe what they're saying, they may be being deceptive with you, is when they don't hit when they're talking on those words. They'll just sort of do a free play thing here as they're speaking.
All right, we've got sound for this one. Let's hear it.
Okay.
In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? What are they going to be prosecuted?
So here again, we're seeing anger as well. So because we're seeing frustration and anger. And we know that because the head is tilted forward. At the same time, you could say that's confidence. Quite often your head comes back when you're confident. But in this, it's almost like he's coming forward. So that's where we're seeing the confidence part there. But he's frustrated and he's angry. And that's what we're seeing here. Some we're seeing the disdain right in there. So, which is normal for a situation like this because obviously he doesn't like her at all. But they're both showing a lot of disdain toward each other, contempt toward each other.
All right, let's sit back down a minute because I want to ask you guys another question because you were watching not just the debaters, but the moderators, and both of you are world-class interrogators. You interrogate suspected terrorists that have been arrested or detained from countries all over the world. You've done it in a number of situations. We've interrogated together.
For sure.
Murder suspects, all sorts of things. Was there bias by the moderators today, in y'all's opinion?
Let's just look at body language. Look at the facial expressions of people when they're looking at Trump. There was clearly a bias against Trump in their faces. Let's take my other opinion. This is all my opinion. There's a little bit of a thumb on the scale when you ask one person 2 questions in a row as the primary question, and it's a softball question. That feels like bias to me. I would challenge them to tell me why that's not bias if I were in his situation.
At the same time, we're seeing the commentators, they would be speaking at the same time President Trump was. So as he's trying to finish his answer, they would not only answer, they would keep talking as well. And you can tell, and I believe, if I'm correct here, the volume of his microphone might have been a little bit hotter than everybody else's. That's why he sounded so loud. He was speaking loudly, but I think you'll hear this when you listen back and forth. This is my opinion.
Well, let me remind everybody that Scott's a Grammy-nominated music producer, so he knows a little bit about sound.
So I pay attention to that stuff a little bit. So he sounded a little bit louder to me. So that whether that was on purpose to make him sound more aggressive, I don't know, but he was pretty loud in there.
Here were the questions until I had to walk over here. When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago? Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs? To Trump, why should women trust you on the issue of abortion? To Harris, why did the Biden administration wait until 6 months before the election to take action on immigration? To Trump, how would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? To Harris, why have so many of your policy positions changed? Fracking, assault rifles, the border. To Trump, is there anything you regret about what you did on January 6th? Do you acknowledge that you lost the 2020 election? And in each of these questions to Trump, there were fact-check follow-up questions, and I didn't hear that to Harris.
Nor did I, and there's a way you ask a question. I interrogated people for a long time, and when you're doing that, you want to look at, how do I ask the question? Why didn't you say, why have you not done anything about the border, as opposed to Trump, didn't you? There's a more negative tone often towards Trump. At the end of the day, this is about finding out what they think and giving everybody a chance to understand it. And I thought it was a little heavy-handed at times, just my opinion.
Okay. Anybody have a question for either of these two about what they've observed or seen? If you do, raise your hand. We'll bring you a microphone. Okay. Yes, far in the back over here. Stand up so they can find you easily. Quick.
How do you respond?
Say your name, please.
I'm sorry, my name's Luke. how do you respond to the claims that the way you're reading this body language, that's something I would call pseudoscience, something not substantially proven?
Sure, let me give you one good example. You know what I think of that? How'd that make you feel? People send signals. We're wired to do it. From childhood, we read faces. What we're doing is reading the normal part of a person's expression. And there are elements that are intended to send a signal and elements that are designed to hide a signal. And that's what we're reading. We're not telling you we can tell what they're thinking, just what we see.
At the same time, if there weren't so many scientific studies and research from universities all over the country that prove that to be untrue about being a pseudoscience, then I would agree with you. But that's where we learn everything is from the studies from that and the live interrogations that we do.
Yeah, this isn't a horoscope. There's a lot of science behind it. And when you're looking at things like blink rate and pupil dilation and coloring in neck and face and things like this, and it's like playing whack-a-mole. There are so many things that even if you know them, you can't control them all. What did you not hear tonight that you wanted to hear? I mean, we've been waiting for this. People have said this may be the biggest presidential debate of their lifetimes. Set a big, high expectation. What did you not hear that you were wanting to hear tonight? Stand up, we'll bring you a microphone. And if you want to say something, stand up so they can find you next. Say your name and go.
Hello, my name is Jarek. And what I didn't hear, just to give a little quick summary, I'm prior military. And I was in for 7 years. I just got out. And when I first joined, the country was not as divided as this. And so seeing the country where it's at now and seeing the division and the back and forth between candidates, I didn't hear enough of how we're going to unite. I feel as though, as being military, that the state of the country, the division, is in a way, it's like a backhand. It's like a slap in the face because first and foremost, for me, it's not about left or right. It's about protecting the country. It's about serving the country. And so it just, to me, it's not enough talk about uniting as a country. We already have adversaries that are already watching us. And if we're divided, it doesn't help us at all, whatever side you're on. And so, one day I want to have a family. That's about it. I want to make sure I have a family in a place where the country is in a good state. I don't want to be in a country where we're always feeling as though there's tension and we may not be here for, as long.
You proud of being in the military?
Yes, sir, I am.
You proud to fight for this country?
Yes, sir.
People say thank you for your service like good morning. I really mean when I say thank you for your service because I know you go out there and put yourself in harm's way for the rest of us so we can have freedom and the things that define this country. And, I hear people apologize for this country a lot and talk about what's wrong with this country, and we've got issues. We do. There's no question about it. But I love this country. I do. I stand up when the flag goes by. I put my hand over my heart when they play the national anthem, and I'm proud to be an American. I really am. And I thank you. When I say I thank you for your service, I mean it. I hear you saying you want to hear people talking about coming together instead of, carping at each other. And, I'm a little bit older than you. I've been bald since I was 12, but I'm older than you. But there was a time in this country where people could really disagree. And then when that meeting or debate was over, they could say, let's go have a sandwich and talk about things. They didn't have to hate each other or assassinate each other's character because they disagreed about even important things. And we really do need to get back to that. And I agree with you. That's something I wanted to hear. And that is, look, we can disagree about policies and issues, But, you know, after 9/11, the president had a 94% approval rating because on 9/12, everybody was an American. On 9/12, we were all Americans. We weren't Republican, Democrat, we were all Americans. And I just pray to God that something like that doesn't have to happen again before we're all Americans again. And we need to require that from our leaders. We need to require them to behave and start acting like adults. And if we do that as voters, you know what? They'll start behaving that way when they know that we require that. And this room is full of independents. They need every one of you. They need every one of your votes to win this election. And if you let them know that that's what you expect, then they'll start showing it. They'll start delivering. They'll start behaving themselves. So thank you for saying that. You had a comment.
My name is Steve. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. First of all, I think I came up with 4 points that weren't addressed in the debate. First of all, being the deficit as it continues to grow and grow and grow. What are their plans to address, if any? The homeless.
While you've been talking, it's gone up more than all of us combined will make in our lifetimes just while you've been talking. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, they talked about the inflation rate, but yeah, that impacts the deficit as well. Homelessness, we really didn't hear much talk about that. And as we live in these large cities, we see the homeless population continue to go up, in my opinion, exponentially over the last couple of decades. Any plans to remedy that situation? There are a couple others, but I forgot them, sorry.
Well, you named some very good ones, some important ones that are very thoughtful. Let me ask you this. How many of you are bothered by the fact that Trump has been prosecuted as both a criminal and civilly? If that bothers you, raise your hand. If you say, no, that's just lawfare, they're just after him for their own reasons, raise your hand. Okay, so some of you it bothers, some of you it doesn't. If you think it's politically motivated, raise your hand. Okay, so most of you think it's politically motivated. So why does it bother you if you think it's politically motivated? Yes, ma'am, in the back. Stand up, we'll bring you a microphone. You said that means it's not true? Okay, the comment up here was it doesn't mean it's not true, then it's politically motivated. Stand up, say your name.
My name is Marilyn. I'm standing.
Oh, okay.
I'm short, sorry. It bothers me that it's politically motivated because our country was founded on equal justice under the law. And when Trump faced cases where the time limit had expired, cases that were changed from misdemeanors to felonies, that's not right. And then when Biden was actually proven guilty of having documents in his home that he wasn't legally allowed to have because he had been a senator and vice president and not a president, but they let him off. They said, well, he can't stand trial. That really bothers me because we need it to be equal. And there's people in this room that I know have not gotten a fair break on a court hearing, and it didn't have anything to do with them really doing anything wrong.
People in this room?
I bet.
Oh, really? Who?
I bet.
I'm just kidding. In my defense, these are chairs and those are stools. That's why it didn't look like you were standing up. Not that I needed a fence. Okay. All right, now, let me ask you this. This debate, which was really hyped as being a big thing, did this under-deliver or did it deliver? Did this actually mean something to you? In the back, stand up.
Hi, my name is Shelley. I'm also standing, so. I think, I came into this with an open mind. I really, really wanted Vice President Harris to hit it out of the park. I don't think she did. I think she did better than some people expected her to. The cackle was not there. I kept waiting for it, and it didn't come. But I still didn't get answers. I didn't get answers to fundamental questions that we need to know as voters. And we just keep getting circled around that.
Like what? What did you not get an answer to?
Her economic plans. What is an opportunity economy? What does that mean? Who's paying for the tax cuts that she's proposing? Because in my opinion, giving people down payment assistance on houses just drives inflation up higher. Who's paying for all of these child tax credits? That's just the taxpayers coming out of pocket and hurting the middle class again. So I don't think that we got to the meat and potatoes of the things that really matter. And we know from Donald Trump's presidency before, he can fix the economy. So I was really looking for her to make an impact on my thought process tonight, and she didn't deliver that.
All right, how many of you agree that you heard kind of buzzwords, but not real substance tonight? Raise your hand. Okay, raise it real high, because they're going to watch this. Really, they're going to watch this. They're going to say, Dr. Phil had a bunch of independents down there and asked some meaningful questions. They're going to watch this. I want to see that you all say, we heard buzzwords, we heard names of bills, but we didn't hear any substance. Let me ask you this. You said when they talk about we're going to get people down payments for homes, we're going to get child care. When you hear things like student loan forgiveness, even if you're one with a student loan, I had one young man on the show that paid $945 a month for 10 years and owed more than he started with. Honest to God, I wanted to pay it off for him. I felt terrible. It was for cooking school. Hell, I can cook. But nonetheless, there is no loan forgiveness. What do you? God will forgive you, but you still got to pay the loan. Somebody's got to pay that, right? When you hear about that sort of thing, does it impact you that somebody's got to pay this? That even if it's a worthwhile thing, you may still say, I'm willing to do it, but you're aware somebody's got to pay it, right? Yes. Stand up. This will be our final comment here.
My name is Deidre.
Deidre.
I've been a social worker for over 25 years. Funded bachelor's with the help of my parents, master's by student loans. I paid those student loans from 2000 to 2023, and my balance was greater than when I started. I applied, I worked for nonprofits, I had the opportunity to work with families, with children, with seniors, with adults who have experienced significant issues in their life and needed support. And so it was a privilege of mine to serve those. The Biden administration put forth I believe, the manpower into the public service loan forgiveness program to really look at who already qualified.
Right.
And in 2024, my balance was forgiven, which meant even though I had paid more than my borrowed amount plus interest, and I still had a greater balance, they said, we're done. You're done. Go forward. And so now I'm able to consider the opportunities ahead of me without the weight of that balance that I've been paying on for 23 and a half years that should have been paid for.
Yeah, and you've been giving back along the way through the work you've been doing.
It's been an absolute pleasure to do so.
Well, thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're out of time. This has really been informative to me, and I promise you these candidates are going to watch this. Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you at home for watching. If you didn't catch all of this, go to the Merit app, and you can watch it there. Special thanks to Greg Hartley and Scott Rouse. We appreciate you being here. Good night.